What's up guys, it's Pete from GLaDOS Studios and we are doing the very first ever GLaDOS Studios Q&A session. Now, I don't want to waste too much time and I just want to dive right into this, but before we do, I just want to give a quick shout out to Midfield Miniatures, who has kindly been able to sponsor this video. Now, if you like models at a reasonable price and are great quality, then give Midfield Miniatures a look up. I'll put the link in the description so you can go and check that out. But without further ado, let's get on with it. So just before we start the questions, I just wanted to point out as well that the questions submitted are from friends who are, well, my friends obviously, who are kind of around and involved in the hobby, and I just wanted to ask basic questions. And some of them are quite challenging, but I'm here to give it a go. So let's go for it. The first question is from Clark. Have you ever considered changing your painting style? Yes, I've always wanted to use an airbrush, so my method from using just paintbrushes has now evolved into airbrushes. But I recently did an army not so long ago, a Necron's army, where I just used like 4 or 5 basic paint colours and then worked my way up. But I didn't use just full airbrushes. I just wanted to experiment, and then I used like normal brushes in the style. So in answer to your question, yes, I will look forward to changing my style. I look forward to using blending techniques, wet blending, in like the power swords and the armor to make it really shine. Heavy metal has like a couple of unique techniques that I'd like to look into. So fingers crossed I can try and move into that at some later point. Tom Scarlett asks, who are the Adeptus Custodes? Just a quick brief overview. The Adeptus Custodes are the 10,000 strong shield wall. They're also the Emperor's personal bodyguard, and they're like the Sentinels of Terror. Tabletop, they're quite strong and unique. They're really lovely models to look at as well. I quite like the gold aesthetic behind them and how you can use these royal colours. But yeah, the Adeptus Custodes, from off the top of my head, I put the Emperor's personal bodyguard there. The Sentinels of Holy Terror, and they just look after the Imperium. They're quite badass. In recent times, they've actually been the ones to go out into the galaxy and distribute the Primaris technology on how to make them to the Space Marine chapters. And it's quite interesting because you have quite a lot of chapters that are, some of them are questioning it, like the Flesh Terrors, some are challenging it, like the Blood Ravens, and then some are just welcoming it with open arms, like the Nova Marines. So that's quite interesting to look into if you want. I think it's called Eyes of the Emperor or Shield of the Emperor, the book. If you really want to get into the Adeptus Custodes, look at that book. It goes into depth about how they work as a collective unit. Dale Parkinson asks, what highlight techniques do you use? Highlight techniques, just get the longest brush that I can find, the smallest, longest brush, and angle my model to a particular angle, and then just use the edge of my brush to just finally highlight. As another technique you could use is dry brushing. So go around the model or go around the areas where you want dry brushing, and then use like a layer brush to just edge highlight. That would be a unique way to officially highlight your models. You don't even have to highlight them sometimes. Some base coats just have that unique requirement where they can do it. Or if you want to be really lazy, just use a contrast paint. We have a two-parter question from Cara Alexander here. 1. How long was your longest piece to finish, single model? And 2. Are there many communities surrounding this hobby? And if there are you involved in any? Okay, so question 1, longest piece to finish, the Death Guard Primarch Mortarion. I believe that took me just under 2 months to finish, and that was because I was starting to really test my own understanding of mixing the paints and using my own initiatives to like paint the model. So Mortarion, for those of you who haven't seen the model, he's like a giant moth in armor, and I know that sounds weird, but it's the wings that took me forever to do. I think each wing took about a week to do. I was very slow at this point. This is where I used to just build the models in like certain sections, not even glue them together. And so I had like 17 pieces of this model just around me, and I was working with it, and it was an incredible model, but it just took forever to do. And then the cloak as well, where it used to fade into the mist. I actually have the model on my Instagram, so I'll try and find the URL and post it in the description below. As for your second question, are there many communities surrounding this hobby, and if so, are you involved in any? Yeah, there's loads of communities. So if you go on Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, or YouTube even, there's communities on there that really deal with it, the hobby, in all the sections and all the areas you can think of, from the chapters to the history to the planets to the weapons to the regiments. If you can think of it, there's probably a community based around it. And that's mostly on Facebook, where it's a stronger impact. Am I involved in any? Yeah, I'm involved in quite a few. So Facebook, it's the Dark Angels and Alpha Legion that I'm involved with, and the Blood Ravens, because Blood Ravens are my favourite chapter. Go Blood Ravens. YouTube, I follow people like Mini Wargaming, Midwinter Minis, Next Level Painting, and obviously the man himself, Duncan Rhodes. So if you really want to know how to paint two thin layers, always, any dedicated Warhammer fan will always tell you to go and look up Two Thin Coats from Duncan Rhodes. He's just an amazing, charismatic guy. So I hope that answered your question. Moving on, we also have another two-part question from Joe Langford. Joe asks, I find that some common and much cheaper primer paints, such as Halfords or cheap brushes from the works, are just almost as good as the tabletop brands. But Peter, what everyday east accessible materials or paints have you found work well at budget cost? And question 2 is, can you tell us about a fictional Warhammer character that you like a lot of, that most of us might not know about, and why so, and why do you like them? Okay, Joe, so the first question, so I never buy Games Workshop primer paints. So any spray paint you get from Games Workshop, literally any colour, you can go to Halfords, buy the exact same colour, give or take a few pigments off or on, and you get like a bigger size can, and you can get 2 of those cans for the same price. So Games Workshop charge about, I think it's £12, if not more, for their spray cans. And then if you go to Halfords, you can pay half that price, like $6.99 or something, or $5.99. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. And you can buy 2 of them, and they're just as good. I painted a whole army of what did I paint recently? Space Wolves? No, not Space Wolves. Black Legion and Tau in December, and I didn't use any Games Workshop sprays. Actually, I haven't used any Games Workshop sprays for a long time. So I used them, and they covered the army pretty well. I didn't have any problems with them. And then I just did a dry brush of Korax white, I think it is, over the white, just in case if I made any mistakes, which I did make a few of, and it was just so easy to clean up. As for paintbrushes, I never buy Games Workshop paintbrushes anymore. They're too expensive, and I've found in personal experience that after a while, the bristles on some of the paintbrushes just flicker and break off, or they just don't work, or they bend at a certain angle. I went all out and bought one of their artificial layer brushes. For those of you who don't know, an artificial layer brush is just like a really fancy edge highlight brush, and it is £16 just for one brush. So I bought this brush thinking, it's going to last me a while. I think I had it for less than 4 months before I realised it was just a waste of money. So I use really cheap brushes. If you go to the works, you can pick up like a pack of thin detail brushes at 0.5 all the way up to 3, which is sizes in brush, for £1. And then you can buy like a base painting set of brushes, exact same price for £1, and that's like something from 4, 5, 6 and 7. Or if you go around the Christmas deals, you can pick up like a bunch of 50 for like £4. It's just really wherever you feel comfortable. I'd always buy the cheap brushes because it's just worth it, in my own personal opinion. Especially if you're on a budget cost. It doesn't help that we're in lockdown as well. So always go with the cheaper option. speaking of cheaper paints as well, I use just regular acrylic paint for the bases. So I'll do the model, I'll do the army, paint it all up, model it really well, and then when it comes to the groundwork of which the model stands on the base with, I'll just use regular paint. So I think I got some acrylic A40, as it's called, the brand, which is brown and black. I just mix it together with either a little bit of white, and I just make the colours from that. I don't see the point in spending all this money on Games Workshop base paints to use on your bases just for it to not look as good when you can just buy the cheaper stuff. And as for your final question, and as for the actual final question as well, can you tell us about a fictional character you like a lot of that not many people might know about? So initially, obviously, I'm a Blood Ravens player. I love Gabriel Angelos from the Blood Ravens, the chapter master. But I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go with a Stormtrooper from Aaron Debensky Bowden's Hell's Reach novel. And he's called Andre, and he's just this amazing, funny, humoristic guardsman in this post-apocalyptic war on Armageddon against, Space Marines versus Orcs, and they're defending this hive city, and he just really is an amazing person. And I love the fact that he made a Space Marine, a chaplain Space Marine, so confused that the chaplain just had to say good and walk away because he didn't understand how to react to him in a certain way. And I just think it was amazing. So that's just one of the most personal things I like about him. It's just funny. But yeah, anyway, guys, that was just a quick Q&A. That was January's Q&A from Gladys Studios. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll leave in the Midfield Miniatures website plus their video if you want to check out some of the recent stuff they've just posted up. But again, hope you all enjoy. Thanks for listening. Take care now, and I'll see you all again in the next one. Bye.